Hi there, everyone. Kitch here. Welcome back to the Forgotten Coast, episode 9. In season 1 on Stormrock Island, and only a couple more episodes until we wrap this whole thing up. And I think you'll see by the end of this episode in particular, the final product or package kind of starting to come together and look like a finished product. Right now we have a lot of open space here to the left side of the island, and that's kind of what we're tackling in this episode today, and filling that space with a gift shop. So I've wanted a gift shop in this part of the park. It's not going to be the only gift shop in the park. If you think about a real water park or amusement park, you see gift shops everywhere. Any chance that they can get you to purchase more things and spend more money, the better. So they being the amusement park or water park owners, these companies, they will put gift shops and food stands everywhere you turn. There will not be very many areas in a park in real life that you aren't bombarded by some sort of smell or trinket you see, that, souvenir or whatever. The old trick of rides and roller coasters and finishing their exit lines, finishing out into a gift shop to get you to buy that souvenir. I mean, there's a lot of marketing tactics that go in there, and I'm not a marketing person, but I know enough and have enough experience riding these types of attractions and walking around amusement parks, and I think we can all relate to that. So I wanted to include a gift shop in pretty much every area of the park. Gift shops are pretty cool. You can do a lot of really fun things with them. You can make them really highly themed. And I wanted to do interiors in this park, so this is going to be one that I do build an interior for. Maybe there might be one or two that I don't do an interior for, but I think gift shops and restaurants are the two things that are pretty fun to build interiors for. So, kind of starting off, I chose the castle floor. It's actually a roof, but I use it as a floor just for a different texture, and just to separate the floor of the gift shop from the concrete deck. So it's very clear as you walk into the store that you're leaving the concrete and entering some sort of, probably, let's be honest, a different form of concrete. But you get the idea. I colored it kind of a white there just to stand out a little bit. And I'm reusing this stone archway asset that I used in the cabana reservable seating area that I think would have been in episode 5 and 6 or so. I don't feel bad about reusing it. I think that's, like I've said before, reusing assets in a certain themed area of your park really ties things together. That's kind of it's one way how the eye can tell a themed area is one themed area, is that you see similar elements repeated, but not to the point where it's too repetitive. That's the idea. So I do want this gift shop to be two-tiered. So we have the main entrance right away when you enter across the bridge into the area, and then it will also have another entrance up in the deck by the storm rock slides up above. So you'll see I end up connecting them. For now, I'm just kind of trying to get a palette for how I want this to look, creating this entrance archway space, taking the lanterns. It's an interesting tactic, or I guess strategy, is sometimes just putting like a light or a lantern in front of your building kind of really helps you get an idea for like what it's going to look like. It's amazing how just lighting can actually go a long way in terms of like what the theming is and what's going to look like. So sometimes I'll do that. I'll take like the smaller assets like benches or trash cans, which, speaking of which, we don't have any benches really. I might need to add some benches. I guess we have all the seating though, the pool chair seating, which in a water park is basically the benches. So I guess I don't really need a whole lot of straight up benches, but trash bins for sure. We do not have any trash bins in the park. That's a big problem. I have to remember to add that. A lot of that stuff I'll probably end up doing off camera, just the minor stuff. all the lighting and finalizing all that and all that. But for now, back to what we're building. Kind of fleshing out this area here with some more pool chairs. I think I do end up changing the color of these to match this area. I've talked about that, how I try to match the pool chair colors with the slides or the colors of the area they're in to kind of build that connection. I wanted to have some seating up here by these storm rock slides. I'm calling them storm rock slides for now because I haven't really released a formal name for them. That's going to have to be in the next episode. But I wanted some seating up here and just kind of trying to figure out the best way to incorporate that without blocking the access to the slides themselves, or just in general. I don't want to crowd up the walkway in general. So here, this is an interesting, I guess, trick you can do. Just taking your shop, building the path, and then just kind of raising and lowering it until that path is just underneath the concrete where you're not actually seeing it. Because I wanted guests to be able to go up there, but I didn't want to have that path curb kind of showing through. So one thing I do want to talk about in this episode is you've probably noticed that I don't think I've placed really a single tree or foliage or any type of like greenery, which is honestly one of my favorite things to do in this game. Is the foliage and the trees and the shrubs and the bushes. Like, that stuff adds so much, and it can actually be very difficult to build a theme that doesn't have that stuff. Say you're doing like an alien planet or a space build where you wouldn't have like trees. That makes it actually really difficult because the trees add a lot to your park. They really bring areas together. They fill in gaps. They provide excellent views and sightlines. So without those, you have to get creative in how you do that and how you fill that need for that. And I think in this area of the park, the way I'm doing it is with this jagged rock. The reason I don't have trees and stuff, of course, is because this is a rocky island out in the ocean, or, well, we're pretending that's the ocean. So it wouldn't really have any trees out here. Maybe some sort of like, I don't know, it wouldn't even have a bush. It wouldn't have anything. It would be totally barren. So that's kind of why we're not doing that. But once we get back to the mainland and work in other areas of the park, we'll definitely be adding all sorts of foliage and lush, whatever tropical theme it is. I'm not revealing too much about where we're going with the park in terms of the other areas, but you get the idea. So I just wanted to bring that up because I haven't really talked about that yet, about how there isn't any trees or bushes other than those flower plants I have on the locker room windows. So right here, we are working on just more of the queue line for the storm rock slides. And the idea here is just to extend this out so the entrance to the slides can be kind of right in front of the actual pathway up to this upper level. I wanted the slides to be in the forefront. The first thing, you walk up there, you see the entrance right off the bat. Because that's what the guests are going to be looking for as they come up here. That you don't want to. One thing, and this is something that is really easy to mess up, I think, and I see it occasionally, is it's really easy to hide your entrances. You should never hide an entrance to a main attraction. I mean, it should be the first and foremost, like right where you'd think it would be. So if you look at like a slide, like you would want the entrance to be right at the base of that slide. You wouldn't want it to be tucked around, hiding somewhere. And now in the game, the people, they'll go to the ride no matter where the entrance is. They know. But in real life, I mean, people need to know, like they need to find the entrance, and it's not necessarily an easy task in real life for people to navigate in a park if it's not very clear. You have to make it very clear where that entrance is, right where you think it would be. That's the easiest way I could describe it. Right where you think the entrance should be is where it should be. It's not something you want to shoehorn in because you didn't think it through, I guess. So you can see here I'm working on a trellis, and Kitch, I thought you said you weren't gonna make another trellis. Yeah, I know I said that. I have said many times that this will be the last trellis I build in this park, and no, I decided, what the heck. this looks like a good place for one. And as I thought more about it, I figured, it's not, I don't feel like I'm overdoing it. I think it's nice to have this recurring trellis kind of out on this Stormrock Island. It just makes it feel cozy. I don't know, something about the wooden trellises just have a cozy feeling to them. So that's why I'm adding one here. In fact, I'm going overboard and tripling it, adding 3 of them here, as you'll see. But the reason I broke them up into 3 instead of just 1 was just to give it a little bit of variety. And it's really just for show. I don't know how much a trellis is really, what it's really doing in terms of shade. I mean, no one's standing there. It's the queue line. Everyone's just walking right through it. But here's going to be the formal entrance to the slides. Again, I have that placeholder sign there saying Slush Rush, but it'll change to the slides, the actual slide names off camera. I'll make those new signs for the final product. But still need a sign for those slides, but that is kind of the preliminary location that the entrance will be. And from now on, the rest of the episode, we're kind of moving more into the gift shop itself. Before we start detailing it, though, I did add these few little lights here. And this actually turned out great. I really enjoyed the final look of these. Just took the light, the custom lamppost I had built, and just kind of shredded it of all its exterior wood just for the cabling, and just hung those up. And I just think that those hanging, and anything that hangs off of like a rock or something, to me just feels very like shantytown piratey, like run down type of thing. And that's kind of how I want this island to feel. I want it to feel very used and rugged, and I guess, yeah, that would be the best way I could describe it. Things hanging, things like clutter. It's not like a tourist attraction. It wouldn't be a place that tourists or the public would visit. It's a lighthouse. It's a stormy rock out in the ocean. So that's why I think hanging things like that is a really fun way to show that. And actually, I want to go through and do a bunch more of that in other areas of the park, and I'll probably do that off camera or maybe in the next episode. Just to add, I think the park needs a lot more of that character to it, the clutter and the barrels and the crates and the rope and all that stuff just everywhere, just to really give it that stormy kind of like things have just been tossed around in the storm, and I think that's really gonna make it shine at the end. So in the gift shop here, these are the stairs that I mentioned before, using the same custom assets, the rope fence. That rope is the material I want to be very present, and it'll probably be used in many areas of the park. The park being the entire Forgotten Coast, just because I think rope is a very old, rustic feeling material that can be used in a lot of themes. And it's also a very small piece, and any tiny piece in Planet Coaster is something that you will probably see me use a lot, just because we don't have a lot of tiny pieces. So the gift shop is not going to be completely finished in this episode. I really wanted to finish it. I tried to cram as much as I could, but I decided what I eventually came to was what I thought was a good stopping point to give you an idea of basically what it's going to look like on the interior, finished interior, and the exterior just needs to be cleaned up and finished in the next episode. But I think you'll be pleased to see the amount of progress I do make on it in this episode. But it will be finished in the next one, which hopefully is the last one. I'm pretty confident it will be. We have just a few more areas to kind of tie up, and then I'll probably do some sort of final video, maybe just extended cinematics in the next episode. I am going to release this to the Steam Workshop, so I don't think I need to go too overboard, because anyone who owns the game can load it up and take a look themselves. But I'll be posting some screenshots into the Discords I'm in. I'll kind of try to advertise it a little bit on the finished product, and before heading into season 2, where we'll start a new area of the park, which I'm not revealing yet. I still need to decide which area of the park I want to tackle next. But before we count the chickens before they hatch here, let's focus on finishing up this one correctly. So, like I said, a lot of this clutter and extra stuff I'm really looking to add. And I tried to make this gift shop very thematic and in a sense of very, I guess, well, what you'll see is that I end up calling it Driftwood Collections. So meaning the driftwood would be like a tie to the storm. You have, driftwood, things floating into the onto the island, and then collections being a reference to the fact that it's a souvenir store. But I wanted to have 3, I guess 4 in this case, openings there, the archways. As you walk across the bridge will be another thing that we complete in the next episode. I'm really excited about that because I am a civil engineering graduate and I love bridges. And that's just one of my favorite things to make in this game. But anyway, back to what I was saying. As you walk in across the bridge, you should see, the first thing to your left is this gift shop. It's open. You walk right into it. You can see right into it. There's a lot, all the souvenirs and stuff are right there, just to your left, almost spilling out onto the path. And then as you walk inside, you kind of get immersed in this interior that takes you up to this upper level where the slides are. And again, having those 3 openings there, the 3 archways, as kind of a grand entrance to get you in and out of the gift shop. Kind of that, like I said before, that big opening that it draws you in. It's not hiding. That's one thing that, because in the game, the souvenir stores, the actual hat's fantastic that I just plopped down there. Since they're so small, they're just one shop. It's easy to just kind of cram it somewhere and just connect a path to it. But if you think about what a real souvenir or gift shop looks like in a park, I mean, they're fairly large. You walk in and they've got, if you think about a Disney World, for example, they're massive. They take up multiple buildings. They're all connected. And that's kind of what I want to have in this park, because I consider this park to be a Disney caliber of theming. So this would exist in a world of, it would be owned by a company like Disney or something, and it would draw in that type of crowd, and it would be comparable in size and scale. So I'm kind of replicating a lot of my theme park assets and ideas here based off of what you would see in, say, a Disney park. So when I talk about realism, I'm not necessarily talking about what you might find in your small park, even like a Six Flags, which isn't really small, but that type of park. I'm talking more about what you would see in a park like a Disney or Universal, or a highly themed, big budget type of park. So one thing I did add here, as I'm working on right now, is I wanted this building to have a little bit of height. I wanted it to be prominent, to stand out as kind of one of the major buildings of this plaza that's forming around it. So I added these archways, and I'm just throwing some glass in there, just to kind of, for the realism. I don't think that would necessarily have to be open, but just to have it, you'd be able to see in to the upper ceiling of the gift shop. And kind of on that point, I wanted the gift shop to be very open, have the ceiling very high, like a vaulted ceiling, so to speak. I didn't want it to feel crowded. I wanted it to feel crowded, but also open in the as you kind of can look up into the things hanging above you. I wanted it to be very 3-dimensional. So that's why I went with kind of this high ceiling. And when you see the finished product, I think you'll see what I'm trying to get at here. The glass windows, the default color for the glass windows, I find to be so clear that you can't even tell the glass is there. So a lot of times what I do is I color them. In this case, it's just just total white, and it just makes it very evident that it's glass. You can still see through it, but it's very frosted over, a little more opaque. And I think I'll probably do that more as I continue to build in the park, just because I just like knowing that it's a window and seeing the glass. And I think sometimes the default glass color just looks a little bit too transparent. It's so realistic you can't even tell it's glass. It could be nothing. So same idea on the upper side with the second level windows that I'm kind of duplicating and bringing over here. And then I did use this stucco kind of colored gray piece kind of on the interior. This has got to be one of my favorite pieces for building because, and I think I've said that about 10 different pieces, so I have a long list of favorites, I guess. But it's really nice because it's just so plain. Like, it has such a nice texture that's kind of like worn and weathered, but you can color it any color you want, so it can pretty much work with almost anything. In this case, I wanted it to look like a concrete, just kind of like a gray concrete, but there's not a lot of great concrete pieces in this. That stucco piece is very flat, and it's a trim, so it's very skinny. It can just go right on the wall, and you can use it in a lot of different ways. So I couldn't resist adding this little balcony here, just because of the view it has overlooking the water and the island, or the mainland, I should say, across the way. So as I was thinking about it, I decided, this would be pretty cool to have as an accessible location for the guests to shop in. And I decided, hey, what the heck, let's turn it into a clearance area. So that upper level is going to be the clearance area, so it's not going to necessarily, well, I was going to say it's not going to be as busy. I guess it depends on what kind of shoppers are in the store looking for stuff, but generally a lot of the times you'll see stores, they'll have like their clearance racks. Sometimes they'll have like a upper level or like a tucked away area. That's like the clearance area that you can go. That's I guess kind of like away from the rest of the items. So that's kind of my idea. And I'll have some stairs that go up there, and you'll see that coming. But here I'm just working on the wall using this painted wooden piece, which I end up covering in various spots with that stucco. But as you can see, this building, if you want to make a building really look good, and again, this is just all my opinion, take it for whatever you want. I'm not an expert, and there's people that are much better than me at this game, but in my opinion, making complicated and very realistic and organic looking buildings, when you're making interiors at least, you really have to build in layers. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. Is there's many different pieces that have gone into this building. It's not just a wall, another wall, a wall, and then a roof and a floor. It's many different materials. You have like the wood trim on the inside for the interior finish, but then on the outside, you might have a different material. So you kind of have to build in multiple steps and just keep layering on the pieces as you see fit until you get that final look that you're going for. And now the roof is its own challenge, and we don't really get too much into the roof in this episode. That will have to be in the next one, but the roof can, this is another example of what I've described before as building from the interior first. A lot of people try to build the walls, build the roof, and then they get stuck with this interior that just has bits and bobs sticking out all over the place. And here what I've done is I've built all the interior first. I'm building the walls up around it, and then at the end we can fit the roof, the custom roof, around it. And it can be tough because you can have a complicated shape, as this building's a pretty complicated shape. It's not squares and rectangles. But what we'll end up doing is you can end up doing a very realistic flat roof that just covers the building with a parapet wall for the theming element, and I'll talk more about that as we get to it. And that can be one way to help. You can also compartmentalize your building roofs. So maybe you have like a square roof that's sticking out in just one corner of the building, so it's an easy roof to work with. And then the parts of the building that are kind of weird shaped, you can just fill in with a flat roof, just like your typical concrete with your ducts and your air conditioning and all that stuff. So that was, as I explained that, I just blew by the the construction of that little step ladder there going up to the small clearance area. And here I begin on the actual filling these shelves I put in all over the place with the actual souvenir items. And this is something that TMTK is just the hero on. And like I said, I'm not using TMTK in this build, so I'm resorting to in-game pieces just to replicate souvenirs. But TMTK is a great alternative if you're doing gift shops. So many cool items out there. Most of this I'm cutting out. You'll just see the finished product here. Basically all I'm doing is I'm taking small pieces, anything I can find that might look like some sort of souvenir, whether it be maybe like for the kids, like a little play, a play gasoline container in that example. Now, whatever that might be, just some sort of toy, or I have those shirt racks that I put in that I have had as a pre-built blueprint. They're just made of simple library books, actually, just kind of made into a t-shirt shape. I've got the drawers with the t-shirts inside, which are just colored shapes stacked on top of each other to kind of look like shirts overlaid on each other. Books are a great way to fill in spaces. There's a lot of good book pieces just to use, because oftentimes souvenir stores have a lot of books and different things you could check out on the history of the park or whatever it may be, going with the theme. So that's kind of the idea. You just fill in the spaces, fill in the shelves with whatever pieces you can make work, and that's kind of the fun of it. You'll see some of that in the cinematics, the final product of the different things I used. But moving on to the roof, the interior is pretty much done. We have a few other things, some more hanging bits and bobs we're going to add. But to start on this section, I went with just a very flat concrete roof. Now, before I go into too much about the roof, I do want to talk about what I'm doing right here. And this is kind of my idea to fill this space with this vaulted ceiling. I wanted to fill it up with something because I didn't want it to just feel like a plain flat concrete roof above a big open space. It would feel too boxy. So what I've done is I'm hanging up these boats up above the guests, just something to turn and look up at. I think maybe like a sporting goods store is a good example. Whatever it may be near you, they often have like canoes and stuff like hanging above you on display or whatever, and sometimes it's actual product, sometimes it's just for theming. Like a Cabela's is a great example. So that's kind of what I'm going after here, just putting some nautical themed elements and try to make it look like they're actually hung up in a realistic way here with these ropes. And the cool thing is you can actually see those boats from the ground level through the windows kind of hanging up above. So I thought that was kind of a fun little way to incorporate that into the gift shop. So here going with a couple ship's wheels, and I'll add an anchor as well, just to fill that space again, as I was just talking about. So back to the roof. So I went with a flat roof here, and I'm gonna add some ductwork, and just like I did on Storm Shelter Steakhouse, cabling and all that stuff, because this building is a pretty large building. It would have a lot of HVAC requirements and all that type of stuff. So just going with a flat roof here, and what I end up doing is I'm going to build a parapet, which is basically just like a mini wall that extends upward to hide all of the roofing, backstage, HVAC, etc., that type of equipment which sits on top of the roof. So you see this in buildings all the time. You'll see a nice parapet roof that has like a very nice stone finish or a brick finish, and then the roof is actually set maybe 3-4 feet below that, and you have that difference in height, which is how you can hide all of that stuff on the top of the roof. So here's the sign I go with. This is just a font that I've had made out of library books, actually. Very simple though, just making block letters, just taking it, duplicating it, coloring it that lighter blue just to give it an accent color if you just sink it in behind the initial color that you have. It's a trick that works super well. I do it all the time. So here is me starting on the parapet roof, and this is kind of, you'll see what I'm talking about. So I've got that big power generator up there, and I want to try to kind of hide it as best I can, at least from the ground level. So as you climb up to the top of the slides, obviously you'll be able to look down and see that, but that's not really any different than if you go on like a roller coaster and you're at the top of the 200-foot hill and you look down and you see all the backstage and all that stuff. So I'm totally fine with that. It's really just from the ground level. You want to avoid having those things in the sightline. So by just kind of building this awning overhang with this wall, just to kind of almost simulate a roof, but it's really just that half wall, which kind of blocks a lot of those elements from the eye. So that's kind of the tactic I gone with, and it also helps me kind of block off that weird, awkward shape. And then on the other side, which the roof will be built in the next episode, I've kind of got more of a rectangle to work with here, so I can do more of a traditional roof if I want, and we'll see. I actually don't know what I'm gonna do with that yet, so I'll be interested to think through that and see how it comes out. You know, a lot of times as I build these interiors, I try to just focus on the interior first, and I worry about the exterior after, because the exterior is really easy. I mean, you can always add more, you can always add different things and theming, and whereas the interior, I try to keep it a little more realistic, so I feel like I'm more constrained in that regard. So that's why I think building from the interior first is super helpful. It's probably my number one tip I would give people anytime they're trying to tackle any type of interior. So just kind of finishing up this side, I've got the sign on the wall there. So I really have two signs here just to kind of present the building. And then I do end up taking the drinking fountains that I made in a previous episode. I just love how these turned out. I do have to hide them though because of the grate piece that I used. The grating there is, I don't even know it. It's like the fiberglass ventilation. So I just hid it behind those black rock pieces, and I built just a small little wall here to kind of cover it up. So that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I know it was a longer one. Next one should be the last episode, just to tie some things up, finish the bridge, make a big sign for the area. I'm really excited about that. And then we'll be moving on to the next one. I'll give you more information in the next episode, but we'll probably have a break before we start season 2. But thank you for watching. Enjoy the cinematics. I'll see you in the next one.